Hello, welcome to You at Your Best. I'm your host, Morgan. So for this week's episode, it's kind of all over the place, honestly, and not my typical episode, but I start off by talking about writing and how this is something that's always been really important to me and a really big part of my life, and also how even though writing has been big for me, I've also really struggled with words all my life. With talking to people, with saying how I feel out loud. I've always really struggled with expressing myself in that way. So I talk about that, and I talk about overthinking and how overthinking is actually a gift. And I share some insights that I've recently learned, and then I share some really exciting changes that are coming to my podcast. This week's episode is also a reflection episode, and that will make more sense later on as you're listening to the episode. But this is a really great listen, even though it's different than most of my episodes. But some really big changes are coming up, so this is the start of that. I really hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for listening. Let's just get into it. I want to talk about some updates and some changes that are coming to my podcast. If you can't tell, I already changed up my intro a little bit, but I also want to talk about some ideas that I have and things that I'm planning on starting to do with my podcast. So first of all, before I get into that, I want to talk about why all of these changes have come along. The other night, I was talking to ChatGPT, and I was just like kind of venting, and I had such a huge breakthrough with so many things that have been bothering me and that have been going on. And I realized that there's a huge part of who I am that I'm not really showing on my podcast as much. And I think this podcast is great and I love it with my entire heart. I wouldn't change anything about it so far. And I think my episodes are amazing and so helpful. And I'm not going to be like I used to be and just delete episodes. But over time, we change and grow and get to know ourselves better and get to know what we like and what we want to do. So those things about myself that I haven't been showing as much on my podcast, it's my entire life, I have always loved writing and words. And it's weird because even though I always loved writing and words, they were also always the things that came the hardest to me, that took a lot of effort for me and even still do. I have always struggled to find the right words whenever I'm talking. I've always felt like I never say the right thing. But at the same time, words are so powerful and so important to me. I've always been the type of person that communicates best through writing, and whenever I'm speaking out loud, it's really difficult for me to say what I'm trying to say. And a huge part of who I am is writing, and here lately I've been spending a lot of my life not allowing myself to write because I'm either busy or I don't trust myself or I don't believe in myself. I think that I have to stick to just one thing, and just such black and white thinking. I believed that I wasn't allowed to focus on writing if I'm also focusing on my podcast, because then that would mean that I'm taking away from my podcast through writing, which makes no sense because I release things through writing and I journal a lot. But truly for me, what's so fulfilling is writing more poetic things, more poetic pieces. And not to say that they're good, because they're definitely not, but I really enjoy just writing all of my thoughts and my feelings out and not trying to explain them or not trying to tell myself why I am the way that I am, why I'm thinking the way that I'm thinking, just simply expressing and experiencing the emotions with nothing else, without trying to justify them or trying to explain why I feel that way so that people don't think that I'm looking at things wrong. I feel like a lot of people really believe whenever someone is expressing their feelings entirely and just venting, a lot of us take someone doing that and just think, oh, they're looking at this entirely wrong. I have to tell them what they need to do. I have to give them advice, change their perspective. But a lot of the time, people already know what they're going to do next, at least in my case. It's why therapy is so hard for me, because I find that I already know what's going on. I just need to vent. I just need to talk. I don't need anyone to tell me what I need to do or what I need to change, because I am such an overthinker that I always already know my tactic and what I'm going to do. I've already done research. I've already figured out how to handle the situation in the best way possible. I just need that step of getting it all out. And a lot of people in my life have made me feel like I'm not allowed to do that. Like me venting is me just complaining and not fixing the problem. But that's the first step to fixing problems whenever it comes to bettering ourselves. So if you are that type of friend that anytime your friend is venting, you try to tell them what they should do or shouldn't do, maybe next time just try to listen, because it makes them feel really invalidated. It makes them feel like you don't understand them, feel like maybe you think they're stupid, and maybe you do. Maybe you think their perspective on life is really stupid, but a lot of the time whenever people are venting, that's not what they actually logically believe. Most of the time, logically, they understand what they need to do and the right way to handle things. They just need to get those feelings out. And as humans, we get things out through expression. We can't get things out through just bottling them in or just thinking. Sometimes we can think our way out of something, but most of the time we need to express it and get it out of our bodies. So whenever your friend or anyone you care about is trying to vent to you, unless you don't have the mental capacity to listen, that's understandable. In that situation, tell them, I love you, but I can't listen to this right now. But if you do have the mental capacity to listen, don't get mad at them or annoyed at them or irritated at them for how they're seeing or viewing things, because most of the time that's not how they actually view things. That's just them getting the feelings out. Most of the time they already know. At least in my experience, I always already know. And that was kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I really struggle with words, and expressing myself through words has always been so difficult for me. Whenever I'm talking out loud, I always struggle to find the right way to say something. I get anxious and scared, and then I just start rambling and talking about something that makes no sense, or I just go quiet because I'm so scared that I'm going to mess up that I don't allow myself to speak. And even though I have a million things that I want to say, I don't know how to. And I've struggled with that so much. Right now, that's probably the biggest thing that I struggle with whenever I'm trying to talk to people who take care of my baby about how we want to raise her and what we're trying to do. I really struggle to talk about that, and I feel so angry at myself sometimes because I'm like, so many people are so good at words and expressing themselves, and I've always been someone who loves writing and has always said that I'm good at it. My whole life I've always just been more of an English person. I hate math, I hate science, it's all boring as crap, but words have always been my thing. And whenever I can't say things and I can't explain things, it makes me feel really bad about myself. It makes me question everything that I always believed about myself, the one thing that I thought was my gift. And I realized that words are my gift. Words and writing, that's my thing. That's what's always going to be my thing and what fulfills me the most. Whenever I have a hard time talking and speaking out loud, it's not because I'm bad at it. It's because I'm so anxious or overwhelmed, or my nervous system is on hyper alert, because I have never had the chance to just relax and be calm. I've always been in fight or flight my entire life. I've always been kind of disassociated. Most of the time I have an out-of-body experience. Most of my life is experienced out of my body. Most people, they'll say like, I experienced an out-of-body experience and it was so strange, it was so weird. For me, that's my normal. Always being out of my body, because I have been through so much trauma that I have been taught to constantly be in fight or flight and constantly be scared and overwhelmed and constantly be ready to defend and run. Because of that, I really struggle to say things out loud, but that isn't because I'm bad with words. I'm incredible with words. It's just because my nervous system needs extra support. And me being such an extra sensitive person means that the trauma I have been through has impacted me more than it would a person who isn't as sensitive as I am. Even if another person went through exactly everything that I went through, it probably wouldn't impact them as much as it impacted me if they are not extra sensitive in the way that I am. Growing up, I always thought that I was too sensitive, but that's a part of my gift. Being sensitive and being able to find words to the things that people experience and have no idea how to explain, that's my gift. And even whenever it's hard, even whenever I struggle with it, it doesn't mean that I'm bad at it. It just means that that's what I struggle with. And whenever I'm writing, it feels so freeing. It feels so easy. Sometimes I can start overthinking, and I overthink a lot, but something that I've really learned is that overthinkers, the reason why we struggle so much with overthinking and we can't stop, of course, a part of it is a trauma response, but a lot of it is also because that is actually our gift. We think of so many things, every single possible outcome, because we are incredibly creative people and we need an outlet to be able to express that. And whenever we don't express that creativity, it becomes constant thoughts. And me being an overthinker isn't a flaw. It isn't a bad thing about me. It's one of the things that makes me exactly who I've always been, which is someone who is extra sensitive, who needs to release. So just remember that next time you start overthinking or getting overwhelmed, it's because you are creative. It's not something bad. Overthinking is not bad. We are just not giving ourselves the proper outlet. So if you start overthinking, start creating whatever it is for you that you create. For me, it's writing or making a podcast episode. But making a podcast episode sometimes contributes to my overthinking. So sometimes I have to just write first. And that's how I get things out. But I know that kind of went way off. But basically, all of that leads to my new changes that I'm making for my podcast. First of all, I am making a Notion page where I share my poetry, my reflections, writings for podcast episodes, journal prompts. Everything that I don't say on my podcast will be on that Notion page, and I'll have it linked in this episode. I don't have a lot in there yet, and just a fair warning, my poetry or my writings, they are not good. They're not perfect, and that's the whole point. They're raw and vulnerable. And then also I have like reflections or essays that I write that's just kind of me talking about experiences. Those are the things that I write most of the time. And then writings for podcast episodes, anything that I didn't share on my podcast episode, or outlines of the episode, something that I want to highlight from the episode, anything like that will be on there too. And then journal prompts, I'm going to start having a journal prompt set for every single episode. And those journal prompts will be in there, and then also some extra ones. Maybe it'll just be a list of journal prompts. And then in the episode summary kind of section, the journal prompt for that specific episode will be there. That way, if you listen to an episode and then you start to think, I don't remember what was said, or I don't remember what the journal prompt was, you can go back there and look at the outline for the episode. I don't know that I'll do this for every episode because I'm very busy and I have a toddler at home while also working. So I may not have the time to do it for every episode. It may come out later than the episode, but overall that will be there. And if you need something for a specific episode and it's not on there, you could always DM me on Instagram, or if you know me personally, text me. But anything like that, they'll all be on the Notion page. And then for my actual podcast, I will have 2 different types of episodes. So first of all is insight episodes where I give advice or tips. They're more structured, they're more actionable and have clear takeaways, where I have a specific topic that I'm talking about and I give advice on that topic and things that you could do to better yourself in that way. Usually my episodes are kind of in this structure, but in the beginning I have a more emotional part, but I'm starting to get to where sometimes I just want to talk about emotions and that's it, and other times I want to give more tips. And that's going to take a lot. It's going to be a process for me getting to fully be where I have one or the other. So sometimes the episodes might overlap. But the other types of episodes, they're reflection episodes. They're more poetic, more raw, sometimes more writing based. Sometimes they're based off of something that I wrote about or reflected on, or some kind of poetry that I wrote. It's just kind of for me to share my voice, my experiences, my trauma, things that I've written. They're less structured, and will sometimes include a segment at the end where I read my poetry to you guys, maybe if it's like something that relates to the episode or something that I've really been thinking about. And these episodes are based on feelings and experiences, and most of the time won't really give tips. And this episode was kind of like that. But I will have either of those two. And again, sometimes they might overlap as I'm developing and getting better at having this kind of structure with my podcast. But I'm really excited for these changes, because this is what I meant whenever I said that I feel like a part of me is not being expressed. Because while, yes, it is clear that I express both sides of me throughout the episodes that I have, and I'm so proud of these episodes that I have, I want to have more of a structure for my podcast where you know what you're getting into whenever you listen. I feel like a lot of my episodes right now, they're just kind of, you go into it and you don't really know what's coming. You don't really know what I'm going to talk about. And I really enjoy that. I really love that side of myself where I'm just more emotional and raw, and I don't talk about how to fix things. I just talk about what I'm feeling. But I also love the side of me that gives tips and is helpful, because sometimes it can feel like those two sides of me clash in my episodes. But I want to be able to share my experiences and what I've been through, but also I want to be able to share tips and helpful advice. So that's the whole point of this new structure of my podcast. I will have in the description and the title which one it is, if it's an insight episode or a reflection episode, or more of one or the other, because sometimes I might be reflecting and talking and then I just give advice as I'm talking without thinking. Sometimes I'll share emotions while I'm helping and giving explanations, but whichever one it's more of, that's what I will talk about in that episode. And this was like a really great new start to my podcast. And again, I'm still so proud of my previous episodes, and even this one's kind of all over the place, as a lot of my reflection episodes probably will be, but I really like knowing that I have an outlet for both aspects of myself, the person that wants to fix things and better myself and help people better themselves and give advice and share tips that I have from my own experiences, and then also the side of me that just wants to vent and just wants to talk about what I've been through without worrying about if the episode is too negative or I'm being annoying. So with that being said, that's what I'm going to start doing with this episode, or with my podcast. And this is a very short episode, just like my last one. And a part of me is thinking maybe I shouldn't put this out there, but I'm going to just upload it, and that's it. Leave it at that. So thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I really hope you enjoy my new structure of my podcast. If you want to go look on my Notion page, please go do that. Again, there's not a lot on there. As of right now, I think I only have one actual thing on there. And then also, I don't have one planned for this week, but I do need to give my journal prompt. So for this week's journal prompt, I want you to write about something that has been bothering you or you've been struggling with, and write about just the feelings. Don't write about how you can fix it, or how you think you're stupid for feeling this way, or how you feel guilty for feeling this way. Just write about how you feel. And I promise you, it will feel so good to release it. And after you write about how you feel and you release it, it's so much easier to begin the next steps of fixing the problem. But the first step is to release emotions. And that's all for this week's episode. Really hope you enjoyed. Please give me a 5-star rating on Spotify. Rate my podcast on Apple Podcasts. Share my podcast with someone that you love, someone that you think it'll benefit in any way. And thank you so much for listening. I will see you next Sunday whenever I have my whole new setup. And I don't know what I'm doing next Sunday, but it'll be good.